We have central bankers around the world tightening monetary policy. Financial conditions could tighten much more rapidly than we've already seen, and growth in China is slowing. So all of these pose downside risks to our forecast. At this point, I think it is very important for central bankers around the world to deal with inflation as a clear and present danger, that this is something that they need to address, and in a very forceful manner.
Coping with the crippling effects of Bidenomics, both at home and abroad, key players with the International Monetary Fund are meeting in Davos, Switzerland, weighing the very real possibility of a global recession for the world's major economies.
So my answer is going to be not at this point. It doesn't mean it is out of question. We have downgraded our projections for growth for this year in April for 143 countries. This is 86% of global GDP. And since then, in a short period of time, a little bit like the weather here in Davos, the horizon has darkened.
Here at home, the Federal Reserve is doing its best to counter inflation, raising interest rates by a half point, the biggest rate hike in 22 years. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is warning that higher food and energy prices are leading to both economic stagnation and continuing high inflation.
Certainly, the economic outlook globally is challenging and uncertain, and higher food and energy prices are having stagflationary effects, namely depressing output and spending and raising inflation all around the world. The United States, in many ways, is best positioned, I think, to meet this challenge, given the strength of our labor market and economy. But we're working. We understood when Russia invaded Ukraine and we decided to respond that there would be spillover effects and that we are prepared to pay. But we're doing everything we can to make sure that the sanctions have the minimum negative impact on ourselves, on Europe, on other countries, emerging markets, developing countries, and the maximum impact on Russia.
Well, those sanctions are causing in part the continuing pain at the pump. The national average now stands at $4.60 a gallon, with Californians still paying the highest average at $6.07. $6.07. Yet, despite these outrageous prices, Biden's energy secretary continues to dodge the issue.
Madam Secretary, honest question. Do you believe that gas prices are too high?
Senator, I completely understand the crunch that so many Americans are under right now. I'm thinking back. I've been driving since I was about 18, so I know that we've had other, I remember back when there were lines out the gas stations and that kind of thing. I think that Americans are still recovering from this terrible pandemic, and there are a lot of other world events that are making things difficult for all of us.
So it sounds you're unwilling to say that gas prices are too high.
Then again, what else would you expect from this abysmal failure of an administration? And joining us now to break it all down, Executive Director at Taxpayers Protection Alliance, Patrick Hedger. Patrick, welcome on.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So from housing to groceries to gasoline to airfare, hotels, restaurants, inflation is forcing families to make those really tough decisions. What is the Biden administration's plan for middle wage earners to just keep up right now?
Yeah, it seems like their plan is to just tax more and spend more, which is really what's contributing to inflation in the first place. This is the problem when you have a party that really only has one solution in its tool belt, which is to tax and spend and regulate. But that's the last thing the economy needs right now. You've got a lot of different factors that are rocking the boat, right? Everything from the war in Europe to the ongoing pandemic and the issues that are the lockdowns that you're seeing in China. What entrepreneurs and businesses look for to have a stable economy and a growing economy is stability. And when you have all of these things rocking the boat, more taxes, more regulation, and more spending contributes to that uncertainty, which makes economic conditions more difficult.
So, let's take the war, for instance, what's going on right now, Russia and Ukraine. If that didn't exist right now, would we still have this growing problem, this growing threat of trying to keep up, trying to, living from paycheck to paycheck? Would that cease to exist, or would it still kind of exist from like 1 to 10? What do you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there would certainly still be inflationary pressure just because of how much money was pumped out of the government in response to the virus, in response to the pandemic. I don't think energy and food markets would be as bad as they are right now because you've got a lot of fertilizer and food and oil coming out of that region, the Ukraine and Russia regions. But the prices of all these things would still be going up. Maybe not as dramatically as we're seeing now, but the underlying problem it's the spending, stupid. It's not just these other issues. The spending makes all of the compounding effects of these issues much worse.
So Joe Biden says that a recession is not inevitable. And when we look at everything that's going on, 77% of Americans in a recent poll, they're very pessimistic about the cost of goods and services. So when he says comments like it's not inevitable, and then you see the American people, pleading for help, saying, there is a problem here. I can't afford to keep doing this. I can't go to the gas pump and pay $100 every time I want to fill up my tank. There's a huge disconnect between the federal government and people like you and me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not inevitable, but along this current policy path, we're more than likely headed to one. You've got the administration recently canceling more oil and gas leases. Look, the oil market's a futures market, and the energy market, the oil market is a major part of that, underlies the cost of everything else, right? The cost of food is built on the cost of energy to power the tractors and the trucks that bring the food to market. And so when you have an administration that has been this antagonistic of the energy sector, as it has been since day one, canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, people are going to continue to price that antagonism in, and that's going to reverberate through the rest of the economy. So if the Biden administration continues to do what it's going to do, sure, a recession is not inevitable, but they're not doing anything to stop one.
So I think, order number one, maybe stop making deals with the enemies abroad, with Venezuela, with Saudi. Maybe that's a step in the right direction. I don't know. Patrick, what do you say?
I mean, it's really simple. It's to let entrepreneurs, including entrepreneurs in the energy sector, have the freedom to go out and address these higher prices, right? The only way you're going to bring these prices down is to allow more supply into the marketplace to ease some of the pressure and ease some of the issues being caused by the supply disruptions that we're seeing as a result of the war. And the administration's not doing that. Their answer is effectively go out and buy an electric car, but that's just not going to cut it for most folks in the near term or the long term.
How can we trust this president, though, to kind of just get it together? We saw what happened with the baby formula. They knew about it, December, now into February, and then they shut it down. And then now we're addressing the problem, like 6 months after the fact? So I just don't think Americans really have it in for the president, and if he could really push this thing along carefully.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, the administration doesn't seem to be diverting course too much. You hear a little bit of talk from the Treasury Secretary about potentially reducing some tariffs, which would help bring costs down in the immediate term. But she continues to talk. Janet Yellen continues to talk about these things in the hypothetical, not realizing that the president has the unilateral authority to bring tariffs down that are causing pain in a lot of different sectors of the economy. There's a lot that the president could do to freeze regulatory accumulation, allow for more oil and gas exploration that he could do with a pen and phone, as much as I disagree with that kind of unilateral presidential power, but he's not doing it. So I would fully expect us to be, we probably already are in a recession right now. That's the issue. We won't know until the next quarter's growth numbers come out, though.
Yeah, we don't know. If you say it is, closer than it is, than we expect it to be with all the intel that we're looking at come down now. I mean, so we still have Memorial Day. People are going to go out and about. Do you see it as getting crazy as it is in the past? I mean, I know we had COVID, but just with the prices alone, the prices of gas, airfare, things of that matter, can we see a big turnout in people going on vacation? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think there's still a lot of pent-up demand, and the folks did accumulate a lot of savings throughout the pandemic. So I think we'll probably see some fairly fairly normal early summer months just because people are eager to get out of the house and see family members and have somewhat of a normal summer. But if this continues much longer, we'll see a lot of pain into the later summer and into the fall, and certainly probably a slower than usual Christmas shopping season.
You sound way more optimistic than me. Patrick, Hedger, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.